Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped off the transport shuttle onto the dusty surface of Kepler Station. The artificial gravity felt heavier than Earth's, making his boots clunk against the metal grating with each step. Around him, the sprawling marketplace buzzed with activity as dozens of alien species haggled over everything from rare minerals to exotic foods. He had saved for 3 years to afford this trip. 3 years of working double shifts at the asteroid mining facility, eating nothing but protein bars and recycled water, all for this moment. Marcus needed a ship, not just any ship, but something reliable enough to start his own freight business in the outer colonies. The human stepped carefully through the crowded bazaar, his eyes scanning the various stalls. Towering Xentorians with their blue-scaled skin gestured wildly while negotiating prices. Small, furry Quailans scurried between the larger aliens' legs, their 6 arms juggling multiple items at once. The air smelled of ozone and strange spices that made his nose itch. "Fresh salvage from the Proxima raids," shouted a vendor with tentacles instead of arms. "Guaranteed working hyperdrives." Marcus shook his head and kept walking. He knew better than to trust salvaged parts, especially from battle sites. His father had been a ship mechanic back on Earth and had taught him that lesson the hard way. "Never buy anything that's been shot at, son," the old man used to say. "Metal remembers violence." After 2 hours of searching, Marcus finally found what he was looking for. A small shipyard tucked between a medical supply store and a weapons dealer displayed a modest cargo vessel. The ship wasn't beautiful. Its hull showed scratches and dents from years of use, but the engines looked clean and the life support systems appeared intact. A squat alien with 4 eyes and green, warty skin approached him. "You have good taste, human. This vessel served a Caldorian merchant family for 20 years, very reliable." "How much?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice steady. 40,000 credits, the alien replied without hesitation. Marcus's heart sank. He had exactly 37,000 credits to his name, and that included money for fuel and supplies. "I can offer 35,000, and that's everything I have." The dealer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Impossible. This ship is worth 50,000 at minimum. 40 is already a generous price." For the next hour, Marcus tried every negotiation tactic he could remember. He pointed out the worn thruster housings, the outdated navigation computer, and the fact that the cargo bay doors showed signs of repeated repairs. The alien remained unmoved. 37,000, Marcus finally offered. "It's literally every credit I own." The dealer was about to refuse again when a new voice interrupted their conversation. "The human speaks truthfully about the ship's condition, Grozak. Those thruster housings will need replacement within 6 months." Both Marcus and the dealer turned to see who had spoken. A tall, slender figure approached them, moving with fluid grace despite the station's heavy gravity. The newcomer stood nearly 7 feet tall, with pale silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the station's artificial light. Their features were sharp and angular, with large dark eyes that held an intelligence Marcus found unsettling. "Zara?" The dealer's voice carried surprise and what might have been nervousness. "I did not expect to see you here." The silver-skinned alien, Zara, nodded politely. "I am in need of transportation, Grozak. Perhaps we can help each other solve our respective problems." Zara turned to Marcus, and he noticed their eyes were completely black, like looking into deep space. "You require a ship, but lack sufficient funds. I require passage, but have no vessel of my own. Perhaps we might reach an arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" Marcus asked suspiciously. "I will provide the additional credits needed to purchase this ship," Zara said calmly. "In exchange, you will provide me with transportation to wherever my research takes me. I estimate this arrangement would benefit us both for approximately 2 standard years." Marcus studied the alien carefully. Zara wore simple gray clothing that looked expensive, and their posture suggested someone accustomed to being taken seriously. But something about the offer felt too good to be true. "What's your research?" he asked. "Xenobiology," Zara replied. "I study how different species adapt to various environments across the galaxy. My work requires extensive travel to remote locations." The dealer interrupted their conversation. "If you two are planning to buy, decide quickly. I have other customers waiting." Marcus looked at the ship again, then at Zara. Every instinct told him to be cautious. But this might be his only chance to own a vessel. The outer colonies were expanding rapidly, and freight captains were making good money hauling supplies to new settlements. Without this opportunity, he would spend another 3 years saving credits. "What's the catch?" he asked Zara directly. The alien tilted their head slightly, an almost human gesture. "No catch, as you say. I require reliable transportation for my research. You appear to be someone who values honesty and hard work. These are qualities I respect." "How do you know I'm reliable? You just met me." Zara's expression didn't change, but Marcus caught something that might have been amusement in those dark eyes. "You have spent 3 years saving for this purchase, working in dangerous conditions for minimal pay. You rejected the salvaged parts dealer, despite their lower prices, because you understood the risks. You negotiated fairly with Grozak instead of trying to cheat him. These actions suggest reliability." "The human asks good questions," Grozak interjected. "But Zara's credits are as good as anyone's. 40,000 for the ship or someone else buys it." Marcus felt sweat gathering at the back of his neck. This was the moment that would determine his future. Stay safe and return to the mining station, or take a chance with a mysterious alien partner. "What species are you?" Marcus asked suddenly. Zara paused for just a moment too long before answering. "Zenthari. We are not common in this sector of the galaxy." Something about that pause bothered Marcus, but he couldn't pinpoint why. Zenthari were known to be reclusive but peaceful, preferring scientific pursuits to warfare or politics. If Zara was telling the truth about being a xenobiologist, it would make sense. "All right," Marcus said finally. "We'll be partners, but I want everything in writing. Formal contracts, clear responsibilities, and a termination clause if either of us wants out." "Of course," Zara nodded. "I would expect nothing less from a prudent business partner." Grozak's 4 eyes brightened with what Marcus assumed was greed. "Excellent. Let us complete the paperwork." 2 hours later, Marcus stood in the ship's cargo hold with the ownership documents in his hand. The vessel was officially his, well, mostly his. Zara had contributed 8,000 credits and now owned a 20% stake in both the ship and any profits from their ventures. "She is a good ship," Zara said, running their long fingers along the cargo bay's bulkhead. "The previous owners maintained her well." "How can you tell?" Marcus asked. "The metal feels content," Zara replied, then seemed to catch themselves. "I mean, the stress patterns in the hull indicate proper maintenance schedules." Marcus filed that odd comment away for later consideration. "We should run a full systems check before we leave the station. I want to make sure everything works properly." For the next 4 hours, they methodically tested every system on the ship. The hyperdrive hummed smoothly when activated. Life support maintained perfect atmospheric balance. The navigation computer responded quickly to commands. Even the coffee maker in the small galley produced something that almost tasted like the real thing. "Where did you want to go first?" Marcus asked as they finished their inspection. Zara consulted a small device that projected a 3-dimensional star map. "There is a planet called Xerion Prime, approximately 6 days' journey from here. The colonists reported unusual wildlife adaptations that would be valuable for my research." Marcus checked the navigation database. Xerion Prime was indeed a new colony world, settled only 5 years ago. The journey would be straightforward, and the colonists would likely pay well for supplies from Kepler Station. Sounds good, he agreed. We can load some trade goods here and sell them to the colonists. Make this trip profitable from the start. Zara nodded approvingly. An efficient approach. I begin to see why you succeeded in saving enough credits for this purchase. They spent the evening loading cargo and preparing for departure. Marcus had managed to buy medical supplies, farming equipment, and luxury foods that would be in high demand on a frontier world. Zara contributed nothing to the cargo selection, but watched everything with intense interest. As they prepared to leave Kepler Station, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important about his new partner. Zara moved through the ship with surprising familiarity, almost as if they had worked on similar vessels before. Their knowledge of ship systems seemed more practical than theoretical for someone who claimed to be a xenobiologist. But the contracts were signed, the cargo was loaded, and the ship was ready to fly. Marcus strapped himself into the pilot's seat and began the departure sequence. Kepler Station Control, this is cargo vessel. Fortune's Dream, requesting departure clearance. He spoke into the communication system. Fortune's Dream, you are cleared for departure. Safe travels. Marcus engaged the engines and felt the ship lift away from the station's docking bay. Through the viewports, he watched the massive structure grow smaller as they climbed away from its artificial gravity field. First rule of space travel, he told Zara, who was studying the instrument panels with obvious interest. Never look back once you've committed to a course. Wise advice, Zara replied softly, though sometimes the past has ways of catching up, regardless of our intentions. Marcus glanced at his passenger, noting the thoughtful expression on those alien features. Sounds like you speak from experience. Do we not all? Zara responded, avoiding a direct answer. As the ship entered hyperspace and the stars stretched into lines of light, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what secrets his new partner might be carrying. But for now, he was the captain of his own vessel, heading toward the frontier with a hold full of valuable cargo. Whatever complications Zara might bring to his life would have to wait. Right now, Marcus Chen was living his dream, and that felt good enough. The trouble started on their third day in hyperspace. Marcus was reviewing cargo manifests in the ship's small office when the proximity alarms began shrieking. He rushed to the bridge to find Zara already at the sensor station, their long fingers dancing across the control panel with practiced efficiency. 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace, Zara reported calmly. Configuration suggests Korthak raiders. Marcus's blood ran cold. The Korthak were notorious pirates who operated in the frontier sectors, preying on merchant vessels and small colonies. Their ships were fast, heavily armed, and their crews showed no mercy to anyone who resisted. How did they find us in hyperspace? Marcus demanded as he strapped into the pilot's seat. That's supposed to be impossible. Not impossible, Zara replied, their voice remaining steady despite the danger. Merely very difficult and expensive. Someone wanted to find us specifically. The ship shuddered as it was forced out of hyperspace by the raiders' interdiction field. Through the main viewport, Marcus could see 3 sleek vessels moving to surround them. Their hulls were painted in the dark red and black colors that marked them as Korthak warships. Cargo vessel Fortune's Dream, a harsh voice crackled through the communication system. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. Marcus reached for the engine controls, but Zara's hand closed over his wrist. The alien's grip was surprisingly strong, and their skin felt oddly warm against his. Wait, Zara said quietly. I may be able to resolve this situation. With what? We don't have any weapons, and they've got us outnumbered 3-1. Zara stood and moved to the communication panel. Korthak vessels, this is the passenger aboard Fortune's Dream. I request permission to speak with your commander. Marcus stared at his partner in disbelief. "What are you doing? They're pirates!" The response came quickly. "State your identity, passenger." "My name is Zarathek Vindari of the Fourth Archive. I travel under the protection of the hegemony." The communication channel went silent for several long minutes. Marcus used the time to study his alien partner with new eyes. Zara's posture had changed, becoming more formal and somehow more intimidating. The nervous xenobiologist he had thought he knew was gone, replaced by someone who radiated authority. "Zarathek Vindari," the Korthak voice finally returned, but now it carried a note of uncertainty. "Our records indicate you are listed as missing, presumed dead. Your ship was destroyed 3 months ago." "Obviously, those reports were premature," Zara replied coldly. "I assume you have received new orders regarding my status." Another pause. Marcus could see the raider ships holding their positions but no longer moving to surround them. "Orders confirmed," the Korthak commander finally responded. "Safe passage is granted. However, we must verify your identity through direct visual contact." "Acceptable," Zara agreed. Marcus grabbed his partner's arm as they moved toward the airlock. "What the hell is going on? Who are you, really?" Zara's black eyes met his, and for the first time since they had met, Marcus saw something that might have been regret in those alien features. "I am exactly who I told you I was," Zara said carefully. "A xenobiologist conducting research. However, I did not mention that I also serve as an observer for the Zenthari hegemony." "Observer?" Marcus felt his stomach dropping. "You mean spy?" "Intelligence analyst," Zara corrected. "The hegemony monitors potential threats to galactic stability. The Korthak raiders have recently begun using advanced technology that should not be available to them. My previous investigation was interrupted." The airlock cycled open to reveal 2 Korthak warriors in battle armor. The reptilian aliens were 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws. They moved with deadly grace despite their size. "Honored Zarathek," the lead warrior said formally. "Command wishes to verify your continued well-being." Zara stepped forward, and suddenly their entire demeanor changed. The nervous researcher disappeared completely, replaced by someone who clearly expected absolute obedience. They spoke in a language Marcus didn't recognize, their voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in his bones. The Korthak warriors responded immediately, dropping to one knee in a gesture of respect. Marcus realized with growing horror that these pirates, feared throughout the frontier, were treating his partner like royalty. The conversation continued for several minutes in the alien language. Marcus caught occasional words that sounded like tactical terms and location names. Finally, Zara nodded dismissively, and the warriors retreated to their airlock. "We are free to continue our journey," Zara announced as the raider ships moved away. "The Korthak will not trouble us again." Marcus waited until they were back in hyperspace before confronting his partner. "You're not just an intelligence analyst, are you? Those pirates were terrified of you." Zara sat heavily in the navigation chair, suddenly looking tired. "I told you I was Zenthari. What I did not explain is that the Zenthari hegemony is not merely a government. It is the closest thing this galaxy has to an empire. We control trade routes, maintain peace between hostile species, and eliminate threats to galactic stability." "And you're what? Some kind of enforcer?" "I am an archive keeper," Zara replied quietly. "My official title is Fourth Archivist of the Deep Memory. I preserve knowledge and ensure that dangerous information does not fall into the wrong hands." Marcus felt like the deck was shifting under his feet. "What kind of dangerous information?" "The location of ancient weapons, extinct civilizations, technologies that could destabilize the balance of power." Zara's voice grew even quieter. "The Korthak have somehow acquired access to vanguard military technology. The vanguards were a species that destroyed themselves 10,000 years ago, but their weapons could still eliminate entire star systems. So, your xenobiology research is genuine, Zara insisted. I study how life adapts to survive because understanding adaptation helps me locate lost civilizations. Many dangerous technologies are hidden on worlds that appear lifeless, but actually host evolved ecosystems. Marcus rubbed his forehead, trying to process everything he had learned. Is there anything else I should know? Any other galactic empires or ancient death machines I should worry about? The situation is complicated, Zara admitted. My previous ship was destroyed by unknown attackers while I was investigating a Korthak base. I managed to escape, but my official records list me as deceased. This allows me to continue my investigation without attracting attention. Except we just attracted plenty of attention from those raiders. No, Zara shook their head. The Korthak believe I am traveling under official hegemony protection. They will report this encounter, but it will be filed as a routine verification. My true status remains secret. Marcus walked to the viewport and stared out at the swirling colors of hyperspace. 3 days ago, he had been a simple asteroid miner with dreams of becoming an independent freight captain. Now he was apparently the partner of some kind of galactic secret agent. "Why did you choose me?" he asked finally. "You could have bought your own ship, hired a professional crew. Why team up with some random human?" Zara was quiet for so long that Marcus turned around to see if they were still listening. The alien was studying their hands, which were clasped tightly in their lap. "Humans are unique in the galaxy," Zara said eventually. "Most species follow predictable patterns of behavior. You can anticipate how they will react to specific situations because their responses are largely programmed by evolution and culture. And humans are different? Humans adapt," Zara said simply. "Your species survived on a world that tried to kill you in every possible way. You learned to think creatively, to find solutions that no other species would consider. When faced with an impossible situation, most aliens will follow established protocols. Humans will try something completely unpredictable. That doesn't sound like a recommendation." "It is the highest praise I can offer," Zara replied seriously. "The threats I investigate are often beyond conventional understanding, ancient technologies that operate on principles we no longer comprehend, civilizations that developed along paths completely different from our own. To counter such threats, I need a partner who can think outside established frameworks." Marcus considered this carefully. "So you chose me because I'm unpredictable?" "I chose you because you saved for 3 years to buy a ship instead of taking easier paths like crime or military service. Because you refused to buy salvaged equipment despite the lower cost. Because you negotiated fairly even when you were desperate." Zara's black eyes met his. "I chose you because your unpredictability is guided by principles, not chaos." The ship's navigation computer chimed softly, indicating they would reach Xerion Prime within 6 hours. Marcus looked at the cargo manifests again, thinking about the simple freight run he had planned. Medical supplies and farming equipment suddenly seemed incredibly mundane compared to galactic conspiracies and ancient weapons. "What happens when we reach Xerion Prime?" he asked. "We deliver your cargo and make a reasonable profit," Zara replied. "Then we investigate reports of unusual geological activity in the northern continent. If my suspicions are correct, we may find evidence of a Vanguard facility. And if we do find this facility, then we determine what the Korthak took from it, and we prevent them from using it to destabilize the frontier." Zara stood and moved toward the door. "I suggest you rest before we arrive. The next few days may be quite challenging." As Zara left the bridge, Marcus remained staring out at hyperspace. He had wanted adventure when he left the asteroid mining station, but this was far more than he had bargained for. Ancient weapons, galactic empires, mysterious alien partners who commanded respect from pirates. It read like something from a cheap adventure novel. But somehow, despite his fear and confusion, Marcus found himself looking forward to reaching Zerion Prime. For the first time in his life, he was involved in something that truly mattered, something bigger than scraping ore from dead rocks or hauling cargo between established trade routes. He was helping to protect the galaxy, even if he didn't fully understand from what. And his partner was right about one thing. Humans were good at adapting to impossible situations. Marcus Chen was about to discover just how impossible things could become. Zerion Prime looked like a jewel suspended against the black of space. The planet's surface swirled with blue oceans and green continents, while 3 small moons orbited in perfect formation. Marcus had seen dozens of worlds during his years in space, but few matched this one's natural beauty. Colony Control, this is cargo vessel Fortune's Dream requesting landing clearance. Marcus spoke into the communication system. Fortune's Dream, you are cleared for landing at Port Alexander Bay 7. Welcome to Zerion Prime. As they descended through the atmosphere, Marcus could see the colony spread out below them. Port Alexander was larger than he had expected for such a young settlement. Nearly 50,000 people living in neat geometric patterns of buildings and agricultural fields. The northern continent stretched beyond the horizon, covered in dense forests that had never felt the touch of human machinery. Impressive for a 5-year-old colony, Marcus commented as they landed. Zara was studying sensor readings with intense concentration. The geological surveys show significant anomalies in the northern regions. Metallic structures buried deep beneath the forest floor. Natural deposits? No. Zara's voice carried certainty. The patterns are too regular, too organized. Someone built something under that forest, and they went to considerable effort to hide it. They spent the morning unloading cargo and conducting business with the colony's merchants. The medical supplies were purchased immediately by the hospital, while the farming equipment found eager buyers among the agricultural cooperatives. By noon, Marcus had made enough profit to cover their operating expenses for 2 months. Successful morning, he told Zara as they finished the last transaction. Want to celebrate with lunch before we investigate your mysterious structures? That would be pleasant, Zara agreed, though Marcus noticed their attention remained focused on the northern horizon. The colony's central restaurant served food from a dozen different worlds, catering to the diverse population of settlers. Marcus ordered a simple meal of synthesized protein and vegetables, while Zara requested something that looked like blue soup and smelled like flowers. Tell me about the vanguards, Marcus said quietly, making sure no other diners could overhear. If their technology is so dangerous, why haven't the Zenthari destroyed it? Zara stirred their soup thoughtfully. The vanguards were perhaps the most advanced civilization in galactic history. They developed technologies that we still do not fully understand. Weapons that could manipulate space and time, devices that could reshape matter at the molecular level. What happened to them? They destroyed themselves, Zara replied simply. 10,000 years ago, the Vanguard Empire controlled half the galaxy. Then, in the span of a single year, every Vanguard world went silent. When other species finally developed the technology to investigate, they found nothing but empty planets and abandoned cities. Marcus felt a chill despite the restaurant's warm atmosphere. They wiped themselves out completely? Not completely. Archaeological evidence suggests that small groups of vanguards survived the collapse and went into hiding. They scattered their most dangerous technologies across remote worlds, hoping that future civilizations would be wise enough to leave them alone. But people aren't that wise. Unfortunately, no. Zara's expression grew grim. The hegemony has spent centuries locating and securing vanguard sites. Most are empty or contain only historical artifacts, but occasionally we discover facilities that still contain active technology. And that's what you think is here? The Korthak attack patterns suggest they have acquired Vanguard weapons technology. Their ships are faster than they should be, their weapons more powerful. If there is an active Vanguard facility on this world, it could explain how they gained access to such capabilities. After lunch, they rented a ground vehicle from the colony's transport service. The manager, a cheerful woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, seemed pleased to have visitors interested in exploring the wilderness. Not many tourists venture into the northern forests, she explained as she programmed their vehicle's navigation system. The terrain is rough, and there's something about the area that makes people nervous. Animals avoid it, and even our best scouts report feeling watched when they go too far north. Any geological surveys in that region? Zara asked casually. Nothing official, Dr. Chen replied. But our mineral prospectors have found some unusual metal deposits buried deep underground. Very deep, maybe a kilometer or more. Too expensive to excavate for a colony our size. The drive north took them through increasingly wild terrain. The colonists had cleared farmland and built roads for the first 50 kilometers, but beyond that, Xerion Prime remained as untouched as it had been for millennia. The forests were dense and dark, filled with towering trees that seemed to absorb sound. "The trees are different here," Marcus observed as they followed a barely visible trail deeper into the wilderness. "They're larger than the specimens near the colony." Zara was monitoring their portable scanner, watching for the metallic anomalies they had detected from orbit. The soil composition shows trace elements that do not occur naturally on this world. Something has been influencing the local ecosystem for a very long time. They had traveled nearly 200 kilometers when Zara suddenly ordered Marcus to stop the vehicle. The alien climbed out and walked to a seemingly random patch of forest floor, their scanner beeping rapidly. "Here," Zara announced. "The buried structures are directly below this location." Marcus joined them and looked around. The forest appeared no different from any other section they had passed through. Tall trees, thick undergrowth, and the constant sound of insects and small animals. But as he stood quietly, he began to notice subtle details. The trees formed an almost perfect circle around their position. The ground was slightly elevated, as if something large rested just beneath the surface. "How do we get down there?" he asked. Zara was examining their scanner readings more carefully. The structures appear to be buried under natural sediment and plant growth, but there should be an entrance nearby. Vanguard facilities always included surface access points. They spent the next hour searching the immediate area. Marcus was beginning to think they would need excavation equipment when Zara called out from behind a cluster of massive tree roots. "Marcus, I found something." He hurried over to find Zara kneeling beside what looked like a natural rock formation. But as Marcus examined it more closely, he could see geometric patterns carved into the stone, patterns too regular to be natural. "It's a door," Zara explained, running their hands along the carved symbols. Vanguard technology often responds to specific touch sequences. "You know how to open it?" The hegemony has encountered similar facilities before. Vanguard designers used consistent symbolic languages across their empire. Zara's fingers traced a complex pattern along the stone surface. The symbols here indicate a research facility focused on biological sciences. Marcus felt a vibration in the ground beneath his feet. The carved stone began to glow with a soft blue light, and the symbols rearranged themselves into new patterns. Then, with surprising quietness, the entire rock formation folded back on itself to reveal a tunnel leading into darkness. "Impressive engineering," Marcus commented as they peered into the entrance. "Still working after 10,000 years." "Vanguard technology was designed to last," Zara replied, pulling out a portable light source. "They intended their works to survive the collapse of civilizations." The tunnel sloped downward for nearly 50 meters before opening into a vast underground chamber. Marcus's light beam revealed walls covered in the same geometric symbols they had seen on the door, but these glowed with their own internal illumination. The air smelled clean and recycled, suggesting that atmospheric systems were still functioning. "This is incredible," Marcus whispered, his voice echoing in the vast space. "It's like a museum that's been waiting for visitors." Zara was already moving toward what appeared to be a central control station. "This facility is larger than expected. The scanner indicates multiple levels extending deep into the planet's crust." As they approached the control station, lights began activating throughout the chamber. Marcus could see that they stood in what might have been a laboratory or research center. Strange devices lined the walls, their purposes unclear, but their construction obviously advanced. "Zara," Marcus said quietly, "look at those containers along the far wall." Dozens of transparent cylinders stood in neat rows, each one containing what looked like biological specimens suspended in clear fluid. But these weren't creatures Marcus recognized. They appeared to be hybrid organisms combining features from multiple species. "Genetic research," Zara said grimly. "The vanguards were experimenting with biological adaptation and enhancement. Is that what killed them? Some kind of plague they created?" "Unknown," Zara replied, but their voice carried new concern. "However, this explains why the Korthak would be interested in this facility. Vanguard biological technology could be adapted to enhance their warriors or create new weapons." They spent the next 2 hours exploring the facility's upper levels. Each chamber revealed new wonders and new horrors, laboratories containing creatures that defied classification, storage areas filled with devices whose functions could only be guessed at, and computer systems that still hummed with power after millennia of abandonment. "We need to report this to the hegemony," Zara finally said as they reached what appeared to be the facility's main archive. "This site contains too much dangerous technology to be left unguarded." Marcus was examining a wall display that showed star charts of unfamiliar regions when alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in warning patterns, and automated voices spoke in the Vanguard language. "What's happening?" Marcus demanded. Zara was working frantically at a control panel. "Someone else is accessing the facility's systems. The computers detect unauthorized activation of restricted areas." "The Korthak?" "Almost certainly." Zara's fingers flew across strange controls. "They must have been monitoring for any activation of Vanguard sites. Our arrival triggered automatic signals." The chamber shook as distant explosions echoed through the facility. Marcus could hear the sound of heavy machinery moving somewhere in the lower levels. "How many of them?" he asked, checking his sidearm. "Unknown, but they have been here before." The computer logs show multiple previous intrusions over the past 6 months. Zara pulled a device from their clothing that Marcus had never seen before. "They have been systematically removing biological specimens and research data. Can we stop them?" "Possibly." Zara's expression was grim but determined. "Vanguard facilities include security systems designed to prevent unauthorized access. If we can reach the primary control center, I may be able to activate those systems." They made their way deeper into the facility, following emergency lighting toward the lower levels. The sounds of the Korthak intruders grew louder as they descended, harsh voices speaking in the Raider language, and the hum of advanced equipment being operated. "There!" Zara pointed toward a heavily armored door marked with symbols that pulsed urgently. "The primary control center." As they approached, Marcus could see that someone had tried to force the door open. Scorch marks and tool scratches covered its surface, but the Vanguard engineering had held firm. "They cannot access it without proper authorization," Zara explained as they worked to open the door. "But they have been trying for months." The door responded to Zara's touch, sliding open to reveal a circular chamber filled with control stations. At the center of the room, a holographic display showed the entire facility in three-dimensional detail. Marcus could see Korthak raiders moving through the lower levels, carrying equipment and specimens toward what appeared to be their own entrance tunnel. "Can you activate the security systems?" Marcus asked. Zara was already working at the central console. "The systems are designed to contain biological threats, not military intrusions, but they conceal sections of the facility and flood them with various atmospheric mixtures." "Do it." Zara's hands moved across controls that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. The holographic display showed sections of the facility beginning to seal themselves. The Korthak raiders found themselves trapped in isolated chambers as blast doors closed around them. "That will slow them down," Zara said. "But these systems were not designed for combat. The raiders will eventually break through." Marcus studied the display, looking for options. His years of experience in dangerous situations were finally proving useful as he spotted something Zara had missed. "There," he pointed to a section of the facility marked with different symbols. "What's that area?" Zara followed his gaze, and their expression changed to one of alarm. "Containment, biological specimens that were considered too dangerous for standard laboratories. And it's right above where the Korthak are trapped." Understanding passed between them without words. Marcus moved to a secondary control station while Zara continued working on the security systems. "I can override the containment protocols," Zara said quietly. "But we will not be able to control what happens afterward. Some of these specimens may have survived in stasis for 10,000 years. "Better than letting the Korthak escape with vanguard weapons," Marcus replied. Zara nodded and began the override sequence. The holographic display showed containment fields beginning to fail in the levels above the trapped raiders. Whatever the vanguards had kept locked away was about to be free again. The sounds from the lower levels changed immediately. The harsh voices of the Korthak raiders became screams of terror and pain. Heavy weapons fire echoed through the facility, followed by sounds that no natural creature should make. "Time to leave," Marcus announced. They ran through the facility's upper levels as the chaos below spread throughout the ancient structure. Behind them, emergency systems began sealing entire sections to prevent whatever had been released from reaching the surface. They emerged from the underground entrance to find their vehicle surrounded by Korthak warriors. But even as Marcus reached for his weapon, the raiders were looking past them toward the forest with expressions of fear. The trees around the facility entrance were moving, not swaying in wind, but actively reaching toward the underground complex. The very ground seemed to be alive, pulsing with energy that made Marcus's skin crawl. "The ecosystem has been influenced by vanguard biotechnology for 10 millennia, Zara explained, as they slowly backed away from both the raiders and the increasingly active forest. "Releasing the contained specimens has activated dormant genetic triggers throughout the region." The Korthak warriors were retreating to their ships, abandoning any thoughts of continuing their raid. Whatever they had hoped to steal from the facility was no longer worth the risk of facing what they had awakened. "Will it spread?" Marcus asked as they reached their vehicle. "Unknown," Zara replied honestly. "But the facility's containment protocols suggest that the vanguards planned for this possibility. The affected area should stabilize within a few days." As they drove back toward the colony, Marcus could see strange lights flickering in the northern forest behind them. The Vanguard facility had been protecting Xerion Prime for 10,000 years, and now it would continue that protection in a different way. "So what happens now?" Marcus asked as they neared Port Alexander. "Now we report to the hegemony and recommend that Xerion Prime be placed under protective observation. The colony will be safe, but the northern continent should remain off-limits until we understand the full extent of the biological changes. And us? What happens to our partnership?" Zara was quiet for several minutes before answering. "That depends on you." My investigation of the Korthak will continue, and there are other Vanguard sites that require attention. But this work is dangerous, and you did not sign up to face ancient horrors and galactic conspiracies. Marcus thought about the asteroid mining station where he had worked for 3 years. The simple, predictable routine of extracting ore from dead rocks. The safety of knowing exactly what each day would bring. Then he thought about the Vanguard facility and the feeling of standing in a place that had waited 10,000 years for someone to discover its secrets. The knowledge that his actions had helped protect an entire world from threats they would never even know existed. Partners share the risks and the profits, Marcus said finally. And someone needs to keep you from activating any more ancient security systems without backup. Zara's expression shifted into what Marcus was learning to recognize as their version of a smile. Then we are still partners, though I should warn you that the next facility on my list is rumored to contain weapons that could crack a planet in half. Of course it is, Marcus sighed. Just promise me one thing. What? Next time we deal with 10,000-year-old alien technology, we bring bigger guns. As they drove back toward their ship and whatever adventures awaited among the stars, Marcus realized that he had found something more valuable than the freight business he had originally planned. He had found a purpose that mattered and a partner he could trust to watch his back when ancient nightmares came calling. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of threats that most people would never imagine, but it was also full of wonders that made every risk worthwhile. And sometimes the best adventures began when you simply tried to buy a ship and ended up with so much more. Marcus Chen, former asteroid miner and current guardian of galactic secrets, smiled as he watched the stars of Zerion Prime's system growing brighter in the evening sky. Tomorrow would bring new mysteries, new dangers, and new opportunities to prove that humans could adapt to anything the universe threw at them. He wouldn't have it any other way.